But, there's been this thing. Quite often, I've done this show for, I don't know how many years now, 7 or...
A lot.
Whatever. And we get the same questions over and over again. And I don't mind addressing some of the issues over and over. We've hit Pascal's wager and
Sure.
the anthropic principle and all kinds of things constantly. One thing that's kind of been a curiosity for me, the people who I'm somebody who wants to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. I want to have beliefs that are justified and supported by evidence and sound arguments. And yet there are some people who begin by presenting their position as, I believe in God, and here's my reasons why, as if they can actually make the case, as if they're going to present evidence and argument for it. And when the arguments are countered and when the evidence is refuted, they kind of push back to this, well, I just believe anyway, and you have to take it on faith. The arguments that end there, I don't know that we've accomplished very much about learning why it is that you actually believe. And there's the second subset of people that intrigue me are the ones who say, I believe in a God, but I don't believe this is anything that could be demonstrated. I couldn't prove it to anybody. I just believe it. And to me, those people are just admitting that they believe something without any good reason.
Of course.
And in that case, if you're one of those people, my question then would be, why? Why are you willing to believe something? And do you actually believe, or are you just saying you believe? Kind of like saying, well, I know there's no good reason to think that I'm going to win the lottery, but I really believe I'm going to win it this time. I think that's kind of like just positive talk. It's lip service as opposed to actually believing.
I might actually be able to answer that question just from my past theistic position, because I was so heavily indoctrinated as a fundamentalist that there's a lot of people that write to our list and they say that their beliefs kind of crumbled when their religion crumbled. But I wasn't like that. When my religion fell, I thought my religion was wrong. God exists, but they're not right about it. And so I kind of went on this quest trying to figure out what was right about God. And it didn't even occur to me to think that belief should be challenged. It just was never challenged, because that to me was sort of like a foundational thing. And so I was willing to say the Bible, I found out the Bible wasn't correct. I found out these, the doctrines that are flowing from this, I have no reason to believe them. I'm not, the whole Jesus thing, I don't even know that wasn't just a person. But I need to know, what is this God? And so I spent probably the next decade searching for God until I finally, examined. It took me that long to figure out that what I was calling God was really nothing more than just everything.
And I can understand that, but if somebody had asked you...
if you had asked me during that time, do you believe in God, I would have said yes. And if you'd asked me why, I'd have been like, I'm not sure. I wouldn't have known. It would have been, the closest I could have described it would have been a feeling. And I think it's instilled through indoctrination into people when they're young that this exists. And so you don't even question it. It's almost like you feel you have a soul and you feel this God. And so you just go on those feelings and you're trusting those feelings because you're thinking to yourself, that's all you've ever been taught to call them. And so it doesn't even cross your mind to think that those feelings should be questioned and that might not be God and soul.
So what's the impetus for tipping over? Is it simply education about
Sadly, for me
standards?
it was like 10 years of searching. I mean, I don't know what would have happened in that time if someone would have confronted me like in the way we do on this program. I think it might have ended in the frustrating conversation where I end up saying, I just don't know, I just feel it. I think that would have been the best you would have gotten at that point.
Well, I mean, there's no denying that now, having worked with you for a number of years here, you have as good or better a grasp on standards of evidence and how we go about discerning reality, to where I don't think you could ever hold that kind of position again on any subject.
Sure.
So there's some fundamental skeptical, critical thinking, evidence-based bit of knowledge or heuristic that you didn't have before that you have now. And I don't know if that kind of came for you as more of a revelation or if this was just little pieces along that decade.
I think it was a couple things. I think that the fundamentalist church kind of taught the concept of science as a an authoritarian thing, just like the church. So we were kind of taught that you didn't need to really, you just learn what they teach you in school about science, but you don't know. That's just those scientists, and they don't have reason. They're just making this stuff up, and and so you're kind of taught that science is looked at as authoritarian, and it's a top-down thing, just like religion, and that's how you view it. And you don't. And so during the 10 years that I was searching, I started to figure out that I could actually look this information up, I could study it, I could learn it, and that it wasn't just sort of above me in a way that I could never understand it or never grasp it or get these reasons. And so the more I started to learn about things, I also had to, the tough thing I also had to do was to ask myself, what am I calling God? Like, what am I labeling God? Like, what is it? If it's an existent thing, what is it? And so there were these two things happening where I was like, this is the kind of things that I'm attributing to God. This is how I'm looking at God. This is what I'm thinking of God. And it was very hard just to try to get some sort of focus on what do I even mean by that word.
Yep. It's one of the reasons why in a lot of these discussions, one of the best things we can do right off the bat, in addition to telling us, what you believe and why, but to define the what. Don't just say, I believe in God and here's why. I want to know what you mean by God. Because
and not just what you mean, but I mean specifically, if you're claiming it's existent, what are you pointing at? Like, what existent thing do you think you're labeling as God? Like, what is it that you look at when you're saying God? What are you meaning?